I don't talk about some of these pieces of my life very often, but there's something weighing heavy on my heart. Hey y'all! I wanted to show you what Friday night can look like on the farm. I've had a really long week with work. Really long, Dixie. So, it's fall, it's cool out, there's not a lot of bugs, it's beautiful outside. And I couldn't wait to close my computer and shut down my day, at least that part of my day. And I thought, what a great night to take Dixie for a walk. Now a lot of people are like, oh, Jamie, when are you gonna ride Dixie? We'll get there. We're not there yet. Dixie needs a lot of more time, and maybe we'll never ride. It's not about that for me, but I do love hanging out with her. She's kind of my therapist. She listens really well. So, we are actually taking a walk over to the hayfield. Now, the hayfield is pretty long, but not long or thick enough. It would have been our third cut had we been able to fertilize it. But, you know, that whole supply chain thing and how we can't get things right now in our lives. Turns out fertilizer is one of those things. So we only got 2 cuts of hay, and that's okay. We have enough hay to get through the winter. But with the leftover hay that's growing in the field, I have a feeling that someone might enjoy a little snack. Now she's being very cautious right now. We're coming up to the road, and she's listening and paying attention, very much so, because there's cars out here. And I think that that's amazing that she knows it. Something's up, and that's okay. We'll take our time. Look at her ears go, paying attention to everything that's happening around us. Whoa, it's okay. She's a little nervous. I know. Come here. She knows that she's out of her element. And that's good. Whoa. Okay, we gotta look both ways. Now we're not crossing the road. We're just turning right and walking down the street here. It's probably been a little while since Dixie's been on asphalt. You know, word on the street is that Dixie used to pull a wagon, like a, she says she did. Dixie pulled a buggy, basically, with Uncle Raleigh in it, and she would love to walk in parades. That's what they did. So Dixie was not a horse that they rode like with a saddle on, which is why she's a little nervous about it when we try it here. And I'm conscious of that. I know that our relationship requires a lot of trust, and it's okay. Maybe one day we'll get there. Maybe one day we won't. But for now, we're just out taking a walk. Just 2 girls enjoying a Friday evening. Happy hour without the drink. Dixie's gonna have some happy hour appetizers. I'm gonna have a happy hour video. Yeah, I don't know if the rest of you feel the same way, but some weeks, man, some days are like so hard. And maybe that stress, like, where the dogs don't like her across the street. Maybe that stress, I'm gonna let her go when we get about in the middle of the field here. Some of that stress like piles up. And then when it piles up so much, it can affect everything else in my life. Home, patience level, desire to, you know, do extra projects and things. And I don't know, this week was one of those that I was just like swamped nonstop, and I didn't get very much animal time in, which sucks. Oh, she's so excited to be out here. I'm gonna let her go in just a little bit. We're about halfway. But I know in my heart that when those times happen, that I need this. All right, I'm going to flip this camera around. I'm going to unhook her and we're going to watch what she does. Now, she may do something, she may not. She'll always come back to me though. Oh boy, how fun. Dixie, where are you going, baby? She's like, that's home. Where are we? Oh man, she's like going home. Uncle Raleigh's home. Oh, she's showing off to her friends. How funny is that? Now Lester, her and Carl are face to face. You know that she came from Uncle Raleigh's house. Raleigh and Joanne raised her. So this side of the fence is where she spent most of her days before she came to the sanctuary. Now, in Hurricane Harvey, Dixie was up here in this pasture. She had a partner who was a donkey, and that poor donkey didn't make it. We don't know how Dixie did, because the water should have been over top of her back. But she survived. I will say that she has some PTSD when it rains, and she kind of just freezes. And if you've watched any of my previous videos about that, you know what I'm talking about. Donkey Dan does the same thing. And I guess that's where she and I relate. I don't talk about my mental health very often. Maybe it's pride. Maybe it's fear of being judged. But I have my own issues. I have layers of issues. And every once in a while, when I'm stressed or there's a trigger of some sort, it puts me in a mode of trying to cope with it, I guess. Most days I'm strong. Most days it doesn't even cross my mind. But there are days where I would call it almost debilitating. Maybe you can relate. I got a letter this week from someone who talked about the abuse that they go through with their partner. They talked about how they too went through things like I did. And this is really hard for me to talk about. This woman didn't want to be named, didn't want me to read her letter online, but did say it was okay to talk about her situation. And I'm talking about it because I think that there are a lot of people who have lived in our shoes. She and I have very similar paths. She was sexually abused as a child by a relative. I know, Dixie, it's awful. And she knew that I had been as well. And then, as she's going through therapy, realized that part of her life has led her down a path of needing acceptance and put her in relationships or made her be really vulnerable in future relationships. And she's now in a physical abusive relationship. And I've never talked about this on my channel. I don't talk about it to most people in life. I talk about it to Dixie. And today I just thought that maybe this is something I need to share. Maybe this is something that other people can relate to and can know that it's normal to feel not okay every once in a while. It's normal to go through the emotions and to process them. And it's normal to have triggers. I was in a physically abusive relationship for 5 years of my life. That abuse went from everything to just being pushed around, to being choked, to being slapped, to being hit, to being held at gunpoint. And I want to tell you about one of the worst nights of my life, because it was the last time that it ever happened to me. I know you know this story, Dixie. My son was young. Hi, baby. I know. Thank you for loving me. My son was young and was spending the night at a grandparent's house. And this man, who I was no longer in a relationship with, came to my apartment. And he was very manipulative. And I lived in a small town at that point in time. I didn't lock my doors and just thought that I had already moved out. So this part of that chapter of my life was over in my mind. But it wasn't. Not yet. My baby. Thank you. He came in my door, dragged me out of bed by my hair. I hit my head and was holding my head and bent over to just try to make it stop. And he kicked me in the ribs and elbowed me in the side of the head. And as I reached for my cell phone, because I didn't have a home phone, could only afford one, and it only made sense to have a cell phone at that time. As I reached for my cell phone, it was a flip phone. He grabbed it out of my hand and broke it in two. Here I was, a man who's bigger than me, more violent than me, someone who beat me down both mentally and physically for years. Had me pinned, and then began to rape me. And I lost consciousness. And whenever I came to, he was gone. And since I didn't have a phone, I got in my car and I drove to a gas station, a local little gas station, and I just asked them to let me use the phone so that I could try to call someone for help, call police. And I did. I had a baby girl. And from that point, I knew that that was the last time that I would ever let anyone do those things to me. It was the last time that I would tolerate or take that or allow that person to have power over me. I knew I needed help. I knew it was bigger than me. And I also knew that I needed to get my life on track, and that I was more than what he made me think I was. So I drove to the Sprint store the next morning, first thing, and when I went in with my phone, I couldn't speak because I was so emotional and embarrassed that I didn't have the money to pay for this. I was hoping I had a warranty or something because I needed help. And this woman was so kind to me. She saw me in a line full of people. She took me aside. Looking back now, I'm sure I just looked like the world's biggest disaster. But she pulled me aside. She didn't ask what happened. I had the phone in my hand in 2 pieces. And she walked to the back and brought out a new phone and programmed it. She hugged me and then asked if I needed any other help. And I said, no, but thank you so much. And she said, no, do you need other help? And I couldn't speak. But I shook my head and walked out. And looking back now, I realize that that woman understood because she probably lived it too. And there are a lot of people in this world that I know who have been through the things that I've been through. Who've been sexually abused. And then later on in life, or maybe one or the other, or maybe both, I don't know. But I'm here to tell you that for all of the things that I may look like on all of these videos, and how people say all the time, Jamie, you're so put together and you're so classy and smart and beautiful and all these things, I want to tell you that I'm human and I have my flaws. And I went through a whole lot to get here. And I'm still going through a whole lot. And Dixie's my therapy to go through that. They all are. All these animals are. The work, the physical labor out here, the time treating these guys with medicine and vet care and wound wraps and wound care and all these things. This gives me purpose. Besides being a mom, this is the number one thing that fulfills me. And I know that Lester says it often, that we create these videos and share the blessing of our animals to be able to pay it forward so others can experience it in some form or fashion. But I don't know that anyone understands the caliber of what that what that really means from my perspective, and how much that I understand what people are going through, and how our theme of because we're all survivors of something just reigns true in me too, as much as it does in anyone. I know that people have it way worse than me. I know that there's always worse. But my message is a little late for Domestic Abuse Awareness Month, because I couldn't bring myself to be able to tell my story, because there's some chapters that you never want to read again, and there's some stories that you can't tell and feel like that you're portraying the right message. So my message is here that if you are going through that, I understand. It does get better. And it doesn't matter how many times you've left and gone back, and it doesn't matter what they tell you that you are or aren't capable of. What matters is you. And I know that women aren't built to put themselves first, but something inside of you will click, and you'll know that it's your time to change, and that you can change. There are better human beings in this world. And don't get me wrong, it was not all sunshine and rainbows from there. But I just knew that I was never going to allow myself to be in that again. And after a lot of years of therapy a lot of talks with Dixie. I'm getting there. My triggers are less often. My moments like these are less often. And even as I'm getting through this video here, I feel better. And I just want anyone to know that if you're going through that, there is help. There are people who know. People that may not talk about that they know or that they've experienced it as well. But you can get help, and you can get out, and you can change. You can change your situation, and you're not stuck. Dixie, is your belly full yet? You about ready to go back in? Y'all, thank you for listening to me today. For hearing what's on my heart. And for just being a part of my life. I'm thankful for you all. Okay. Thanks for the Friday night happy hour, Dixie. I needed that.